Welcome to Real Herbalism Radio, show 267, recorded at Big Dog Studios in Eugene, Oregon. This show is made possible by Ace High Graphics. We can help you get exactly the right custom designed hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and bags, all made to order. Ace High Graphics can help you unite your team for in-person or virtual gatherings. Get your quote at acehighgraphics.com. TheRealHerbMarket.com. Are you looking for a store that specializes in herbal products for health, beauty, your home, and even magic? TheRealHerbMarket.com is that store. Now here are your hosts.
I'm Candace Hunter.
I'm Patrick Hunter.
And welcome to Real Herbalism Radio.
Hey, I hate ticks, and we're almost in that season where they're going to be out. I hate them.
Yeah, they're technically, it's tick season. It's definitely well above 28 degrees.
When she said that, I'm like, there is no safe place. There is no safe place.
I was really glad that we took the time to talk to Alexis Chesney. I'm really, really glad to have the information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also disheartened sometimes in the garden when I'm looking at it and thinking, how on earth am I ever going to get this under control? And how am I going to make sure that ticks don't invade? I mean, the bindweed's invading, and the blackberry's invading, and the mice have invaded.
Ticks for our yard, for our house, haven't been too bad where we live.
Yes, we're fortunate because we live in the city. There's been far fewer incidences of ticks.
Right, and our dog doesn't typically pick them up here.
Right.
And I haven't seen a lot of that here. That's not to say that when I've gone camping locally that I haven't seen a couple. But nothing like it was in the Midwest, in upper Midwest where we came from.
Yeah.
That was ticks central. And I think they come back because of the Arctic cold.
And there was a spot in the parking lot.
Oh.
The parking lot.
Yeah, no.
Inside of one of our houses. The parking lot.
Oh no, I don't know if it's just the species of that tick. You know, the thing was it's a pretty common one.
That was a deer tick.
No. Deer ticks are tiny. This is that flat
dog
brown
tick or whatever.
Yeah, dog tick or whatever. That's a very common one.
Yeah.
I've never. Deer ticks are so small that you don't even know that you got them half the time.
Right.
You know.
Yeah,
but
I just remember deer ticks was the big conversation back then.
Oh, yeah, because they were the ones that were the carriers of Lyme disease. And since they were so small, it was hard to check. So you had to make sure that, we came in from the outdoors, they were doing a full-on check. And I don't miss, I have to be honest.
I wanted to talk to Alexis again this year because last year we talked to her, but COVID was just beginning to take our nation and the world over. Right. And I, heard Alexis talking, and I heard a few areas, medias and places talking a little bit about ticks and tick prevention, but really the disease or the virus took over everything, and everybody was focused on that. And now here we are a year later, and people know about masks and social distancing and all of that. And vaccines are coming out.
Yeah, and there's states that have opened up. I mean,
things are opening and all of that. And I wanted us to remember to pay attention. COVID isn't the only potentially deadly and definitely unpleasant challenge that we face out in the world. And it has definitely created a lot more weakness in our immune systems, or is highlighting the weakness in our immune systems. One of the things that Alexis talked about this time, and when we first spoke with her, was about how taking care of your immune system is important. That's an important piece of preventing yourself from getting Lyme disease, or honestly, COVID, or allergies.
Anything really.
Yeah. And I think we would be wise to really, spend some time thinking about that. And don't just think of it from the COVID virus perspective, but, ticks and mosquitoes carry diseases that we should be aware of and we can protect against as well.
Yeah.
And like she said, I mean, it's as simple as making sure that you're eating a good diet, anti-inflammatory, taking care of your health reasonably.
Yeah, it's the thing that everyone knows to do, but they don't do it because it's, it
That's
just
hard.
is.
It's anti-culture.
Well,
it's counterculture to eat a healthy diet.
Isn't it though? But keeping your systems in check will only help you in your defense of invading bodies. Whether that's from a tick bite, the saliva of a tick, or the water droplets or whatever, aerosol from someone that's infected with COVID, to a mosquito carrying a disease. It's the first line of defense is you and your system. And oftentimes no one ever wants to blame the person. You caught it. It's not your fault. But in a way, the reality is it might be. If you're not doing the things, I don't want this to be preachy, but if you're not doing the things that keeps a healthy immune system, your odds have just dramatically reduced. It's like knowing if heart disease runs in your family and you decide that, well, I'm going to smoke, I'm going to drink, and I'm going to eat saturated fats left and right, and then be surprised when you have a heart attack.
Right. Yeah, I face allergies every year. I have seasonal allergies. They show up every year, and there isn't really too many places, even in the desert, I have allergies because people like to plant grass, even in the desert, and they'll spend gobs of money watering their grass and taking care of it, and it'll pollinate. And when it does, that's what triggers allergies for me. So I'm thinking about my immune system as we head into, grass season. And I think about it year round, because what I've noticed is that taking care of my health after the allergy season is done and through the rest of the year sets me up for more success during the allergy season. So for me, what's really happening with allergies is that my body's overreacting to overstimulation from foreign particles and invading as my immune system is thinking about it. And part of that happens because my immune system is a little bit weakened or a little bit stressed out, which is because my whole body's a little bit stressed out. And, it's partly my diet and it's partly my lifestyle. And I don't feel like I do a terrible job of taking care of myself. I feel like I eat a clean diet, but then again, everybody feels like they've got a pretty clean lifestyle. Everybody I've ever spoken to thinks they eat a pretty good diet, thinks they've got a reasonably healthy lifestyle. And we all still, I, as well as many other people, still have problems.
It's kind of like when someone says, you watch too much TV and suddenly they're it's public TV. It's,
yeah.
Oh, sure it is.
Exactly. Yeah. All that milk I'm drinking is, organic.
Right.
But it's still dairy fat. And dairy fat is dampening to the system, and that can cause stress on the system, And for someone like me who's already got a damp system, maybe I don't need more of that.
I think, we believe, and this is my opinion, of course, is that we believe that we can eat any and all types of foods because we're people or omnivores.
Yeah.
And by definition, sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
But I would say that there are body types, and some food is good for you and some is probably not so good. So to know what those are, to, lay off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have friends for whom dairy is actually really quite helpful. They have much drier constitutions, and dairy is very nurturing to them.
Even between the two, you and I, you need oil. For some reason, I
need a lot of oil in my diet. Healthy fats, but I need a lot of fats.
Yeah, and if I do that, it's
very bad.
It's awful for me.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to say how awful I feel when I even come close to consuming the oil that you do,
right?
At all.
Yeah. And on the other hand, if I try to eat even a quarter of the amount of carbohydrate style energy foods you eat, that's no good for me.
Right.
It makes my body just grind to a halt. It's awful. and then I get cranky, and it's bad. So, even though when people see us together, we look pretty similar in body type and shape, we're really not.
Nope.
So there isn't a one size fits all. You can't say, oh, well, take these 3 herbs and your immune system's going to be great. I mean, we can say broad classes of herbs. There are immune stimulants and immune builders. Like astragalus tends to be a good herb for like everybody.
Right.
And then we can say things like, I don't know. Like I said, astragalus. It's my good example. Echinacea is another good, good immune herb. For some people, it works great. For other people, it really isn't very helpful.
One of the treasures Boston's North Shore boasts is Palmer Pond Botanicals and herbalist Rebecca Ingalls. Rebecca cultivates and collects the best herbals, then transforms them into artisan plant-based products loved far and wide. Palmer Pond Botanicals is especially known for Rebecca's luxurious herbal facials. If you're looking for self-care on par with Beyonce and her besties, stop by Palmer Pond Botanicals at therealherbmarket.com. You won't be disappointed. Click on the Real Herb Market /shop/Palmer Botanicals today. The thing is that if you do keep a good diet and you do have a good immune system, great. That doesn't necessarily keep the ticks at bay. It just makes sure that if you do get a bite, that maybe you won't come down with something. And one of the reasons why we wanted her back was because, like you said, more and more people are going to be out this year. And, as you were thinking about your garden projects this year and your landscaping, and if you were to kind of do a tick assessment for your yard, what do ticks like? And is there anything in your yard that would foster that environment for them? And if it is, maybe it's time to either disassemble or move away. Like if you have a wood pile that you use for summer bonfires and you only use it in summer bonfires, consider having a much smaller pile that you use and then you get a new one versus having a cord of wood sitting there.
Right. Yeah. Instead of having one large pile, maybe if you need to have a large pile, have it as far away from your home as possible. And then have just a tiny amount, the amount you're going to use today and tomorrow, as your small near the bonfire, the fire pit area. Right.
It's like maybe have 4 or 5, logs or whatever you're going to use, but or just bring it over when you're going to have a fire that night, instead of having this huge wood pile next to your fireplace, which is usually next to your patio, which is next to your house.
Right.
So suddenly you've got this, tick magnet right there.
Right.
Leaves. If you have deciduous trees and you have lots of leaves that have fallen,
turn them in.
So either
turn your soil over so that way they're being covered and they're being
dug
in.
Or make sure that in the fall you've discarded them properly. You've put them in mulch piles. You've moved them off to
mulch them with plants. Turn them in the next year, or remove them entirely.
Right, like in our area, we have a lot of community gardens, and when the city goes by and they sweep up all the leaves, they dump those leaves in the community garden areas in late fall.
Yeah,
and then the gardeners then use them to cover their areas, or they'll just compost together so they're ready for the next year. So that's another way. So getting rid of your leaves, getting rid of your wood piles, any of those types of attractants. She talked about that tick tube, which was a kind of a way to attract ticks and like make a really nice house for them. Once they get in there, then you can toss it. So
I thought that was a really good idea. I'm not always keen on things that include chemicals, but I will admit that we have a pest service fellow that comes, and the stuff, I think that permethrin is one of the ones that he's spraying, if I remember correctly. And he puts that on strategic areas, the foundation of the house.
Yeah.
It's really about just making sure that the area right where that's close will be as clean and safe from these things as possible. And it was hard for me the first year that I did it to make the choice to do that, but I'm glad that I did, because I don't want anyone in my family to get Lyme disease. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see bugs that don't belong in my home crawling about in my home. And so taking part of the wisdom of the herbalist is in recognizing when herbs have done all they can, and it's time to go to a more chemical way of doing things, like getting the COVID vaccine. That's a point where getting a vaccination, that's not a herbal thing. That's not plant-based at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still not a bad choice. It's a very good choice for a vast majority of us. And why would you say it's okay to get a vaccine, but it's not okay to protect my home with the chemical thing from ticks, which could create Lyme disease in my family, which is forever. COVID's also potentially forever. Let's think about this, So to me, it made sense to use that chemical strategically.
Yeah. I mean, she talked about, tucking. She has a promethrin blanket.
Yeah, I thought that was really fun. Her
like,
yeah. But it is, it's smart. When we used to go camping in the Boundary Waters area of Minnesota, we would, take the DEET spray, because honestly, there is no natural anything that's going to stop those mosquitoes. There's just so many of them. Mm-hmm. It's not like a little lake party in the city. Yeah. So, but when I used it, I avoided putting it on my skin as much as possible. So spraying the brim of my hat, covering my shoes and socks, putting it on my clothing, wearing long sleeves, no matter how hot it was, so that the DEET could be on the sleeves and not on my arms.
Well, especially in the evening, early morning, during the day, it usually wasn't much of an issue, but yeah, you're right. I mean, at night and dusk, covering up. Mm-hmm. And, I remember you spraying your hat once, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then you're like, well, I did it. And it actually worked. I mean, you didn't have a lot of problems with mosquitoes near your face.
Yeah. It tended to chase away both the mosquitoes, and the gnats would not bother my face.
Right. So. I mean, I never got the tick bites on my surface of my hands. And, I always would spray the back of my hands.
Yeah.
So, DEET is good against ticks as well. So rolling up your socks and your pants and your socks or whatever, and spraying that all down. You have to, because if you don't, you'll walk out of the woods and the ticks will be,
the mosquito bites will be thick.
Yeah, and the ticks would be embedded in your shoes, like in the flaps of your shoes. They get in there, and then they just wait.
Yeah, they wait, and then in the middle of the night.
They creep out.
It's like some kind of creepy alien movie.
Well, if you ever see a tick's mouth magnified, it is scary. You're just like, okay, I'm out. I'm out. Why are you here?
Yeah, it's scary.
It's a barbed spear. It's gross.
So yeah, I mean, from a really intelligent, modern herbal perspective, it makes sense to mix your modalities and to be strategic about all of it. Mm-hmm. I use a lot of herbs, like she said. I mean, I use a lot of herbs to build my immune system each year. I use a lot of herbs and just healthy foods, medicinal foods all year round, to make my body as strong as I can and to stay as healthy as I can. Right. And I think that's part of what the herbs can do for us. We may not be able, we can use herbs and essential oils to help discourage rodents and ticks, as well as mosquitoes and any other critters that we don't want around. We might want to be strategic about using some of the chemical options we have too, because they're there and we can. And that's a case where the prevention is probably safer and much better than the disease itself. So it's worth it to do it.
Yeah, I don't know anybody personally, I don't think that has had Lyme disease. But I've heard enough stories about it that I don't.
Yeah, I've known a few people who have been diagnosed with Lyme disease through the years. And it's for the most part, when that's happened, the people I've known that have had that happen, they didn't end up with the ultra debilitating, you'll never work again version of it, but it was rather unpleasant for them. And they had to make huge changes in how they lived their lives. And a lot of times it meant things like, well, now all the gluten foods are out of my diet because I found that makes it worse. I think, or I've found that a lot of them have talked about things like they need more rest. They have to make space for naps during the day. They never used to. Mm-hmm. They can only do 2/3 of what they once did in any given day because, they just don't have the energy to get through it. And, that's hard. Well, that's really tough.
Yeah, no, totally. I get that.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about since talking to Alexis, besides, immune support, was just that it's spring, and just like it's time to be clearing our gardens and making, removing the areas and the places that, ticks and other critters, mice and rodents can be harbored or whatever. It's also good to do that in our own bodies. So now is a good time to look at kind of clearing the internal debris, as it were, doing sort of like a spring cleanse, spring cleaning of your body as well.
Oh. So what do you mean?
Well, I mean, a cleanse there's such a broad category of what cleanses are. It can be as simple as just saying, oh, for a week, I'm going to eat only fresh vegetables. Nothing canned, nothing frozen. It's okay for them to be cooked. Cooked or raw is fine, but it's all vegetables. And, maybe I'll include some light proteins like some lentils or some rices. Or just do that for a week to let my body have less work for digestion and more focus on letting, the organs of elimination, as it were, do their job and get moving. Mm-hmm. It can look like doing some fasting or intermittent fasting. I mean, intermittent fasting is a pretty surprisingly powerful and easy, if you will, way to do cleansing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of people do that. It's easy to accomplish for many because, if you do it right, most of the day you're sleeping.
Yeah, most of the 24-hour cycle
is you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So if you do it right, a lot of people do a 16-8.
So tell me what that would look like.
Well, 16-8 or an 8-8-8 just depends. So it's 16 no food
for 16 hours.
For 16
don't
hours,
eat.
Yeah. So starting
like
at 8 o'clock at night, you don't eat until noon the next day. That's your fast. So you have 16
hours. Okay, so you're skipping breakfast essentially, and making sure you don't eat too late of a dinner, like no midnight snacking.
Yeah, there's no snacking. There's no anything after 8 o'clock. That's it. And then from there, so you eat that. So you're on fast time until noon the next day, or the noon next,
But you can still have water. You can still have tea.
You can have water and tea, but you're not going to. But no milk in the tea. You're not going to have sugar in the tea. You're not going to have. So if if you're going to have a medicinal tea, that's fine.
Yeah, that's actually a really good time to have your root beer, for instance, or your cleansing teas.
Right. Well, if you're going for adding those things into your cleanses or your fasting, absolutely, that is the right time to do it. And then from noon until 8, you can essentially, the idea is that you can kind of eat what you want within reason.
What you want, when you want.
Yeah, but within moderation. I mean, you're not going to be going on an 8-hour gorge.
So, you probably shouldn't be like, all right, it's my eating time. I'm going to run to Applebee's and spend my entire day eating at Applebee's.
Or you're going to have ice cream. I'm not saying you can't have that. I'm just saying that you wouldn't just go nuts and because that's not the point of this.
Right.
And then so you do that for a period of time. Some people do it. Some people live that way. They've just decided that's their thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And other people think, well, I'm going to do that for a couple of weeks. Other people like the 888. 888.
What is 888? What is
so
that?
8. It's 8 on, 8 off, 8 on. It's an alternate thing that you can do.
So that would mean sometimes you're eating in the middle of the night. That's confusing to me.
I'm not doing it.
It's just very confusing.
I'm not doing it. So intermittent fasting, find the program that works for you. Make sure to, if you have any underlying medical conditions before you decide to do anything like this.
Right.
go ask somebody that knows something. Go ask your care provider, your
Well,
physician, or whatever.
even deciding to take herbs like nettle or oats or cleavers or any of the other herbs that are good cleansing herbs. If you're on medication, you'll want to think about that. Consult with your doctor's pharmacist and or herbalist to see if that medication is going to be adversely affected by the cleansing herbs.
Yes, especially if you are taking medicine for blood thinning or thickening or mental stability, whatever you might be taking. There are Is that these contra?
They're contraindicated. It means it's suggested you don't take these herbs and these medicines at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like alcohol is usually not recommended to be taken with almost any
with most everything. Yeah.
So that would be contra. You wouldn't use alcohol. The same thing with herbs. I mean, you think, there's
like nettle. It's so great for you.
However,
nettle does improve how well your liver detoxifies, and some medicines require your liver to go slower to be at whatever level. So the level of your medicine might need to be adjusted up a little bit to compensate for the fact that while you're on nettle, your liver is working more efficiently. So that would be like an explanation of why nettle and certain pharmaceuticals might not mix well.
Right.
It's not that you can't do that. It's that you'll want to talk with your doctor and have your levels checked on those types of medicines.
Very important to know what you're dealing with. If your doctor doesn't know and just says blanket, no, you can't.
You might want to consult with a pharmacist.
Consult with a pharmacist. They will answer those questions because they are trained to know those things. And
they should understand how the chemistry works for that. Yeah.
Because, sometimes when you talk to physicians, and this isn't anything hit on physicians, they just don't know all the nutritive parts of things and how they work. They just, they sometimes are very black and white in their.
I've had doctors say, don't take herbs. And I say, well, does that mean I can't have basil or oregano? And they say, well, yeah, of course you can have those. Well, where's the line? And they really don't know.
And they don't know.
They just don't have. They don't have the time for the training.
Yeah, I understand. And again, it's just like anything else. If you are not interested in that spec or part of medicine, you won't go after it. Just like if you're an auto mechanic and you're not interested in learning about electric cars to fix them, then it's just not what you're going to be doing.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just what it is.
We need specialists in many modalities, and sometimes the doctor is not going to be a one-size-fits-all deal. So you're going to need a team,
right? Which
may need to include a pharmacist and or an herbalist or both.
The other thing I'll just say on all of that is, most people have ailments and situations that are really common to the average physician.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'll just bring it back to the car thing. Most mechanics have seen the problem in your car before. They know immediately what that problem is because they've seen it many times before. So
they know what it looks like when the brakes are getting soft. They know what that means.
Yeah, when you walk in and you say, Doc, I've got this, and this. And they're thinking in their head, flow chart. I bet you it's this. Let's do this test and make sure. And there you go.
Yeah.
Because they know how to do that. They've seen it. Because most of the time when we go into the doctor's office and we have an ailment, we're not a snowflake.
Most of us are not that unique.
Yeah, exactly. There's been 30 people this month that have come in for that because we're in flu season or whatever season it is. Or
we come from the same culture and we all tend to eat the same kind of diet and have had the similar experiences.
Exactly. So we're not snowflakes and we don't have a unique, thing that's going to appear in the Lancet. We probably got something that's been seen before. So that also means that most care providers are going to go right down that flow chart and not really think about, maybe this could be helped with dandelion or nettle or even oregano.
Right.
They're going to think about these other things that they already know is going to work because they want to they want to treat you so that you're good to go.
That's part of, I think, why doctors like Alexis Chesney are so important to us, because she specializes on Lyme disease in an area where it is a very prevalent thing.
Yes.
And the other doctors who are not specialists won't have all the tools that she has to help people navigate those waters. And yes, it's a very common thing in their area, in the broad geographical area. Lyme disease is pretty darn common for them. It may not happen to be as common where I live. So maybe someone who specializes in Lyme disease would have a harder time building a good practice.
But I think you bring up a good point about regionalism when it comes to medical care.
Yeah.
For instance, as you were talking, I was thinking, well, what's interesting here? Mold is a big one here.
Yeah, mold and allergies relating to molds and certain types of plants,
are really big in the Pacific Northwest. So these are things we didn't encounter in the Midwest as much.
Yeah. Right.
And then in the South, there'll be a whole other set of things that.
I mean, they got things like chiggers. Oh my God.
Right. Yeah. So those local care providers are going to know that.
Yeah.
Like if I went down there and swam and had this massive thing happen, I'd walk in and they look at me like, oh, chiggers.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm dying. I have this rash, and they're like, "Oh, that's just
my
chiggers.
whole body is swollen. Why?"
Yeah, exactly. And take this. See ya.
Yeah, wait it out. I don't actually know what the right treatments are for triggers.
Or they would say, "You went swimming in that lake, didn't you?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah." So, anyway,
there's a reason why it's called Lake Chigga.
Yeah, right. So do what you can to prevent ticks as much as you can. If you can't prevent them, there are chemicals that will help to keep them off your body. If you do get them on your body and you do get sick, or you do get them on your body, try to prevent them from being able to get you sick by having a good immune system.
Yeah. Your 3-pronged approach to tick prevention or Lyme disease prevention is make sure your clothing and other things that you might put on your body are treated as much as possible. Make sure your yard is as clean. You're aware of your surroundings, and make sure that you're taking good care of your body all year round, so that way you're in a better shape.
If it does happen, you may not get sick.
Yeah. Anyway.
So with that, I guess,
put an herb on it.
The statements made about herbs and products on this podcast have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided on this podcast or any affiliated websites is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. You should not use the information on this podcast and its affiliated websites for a diagnosis or treatment of any health problem. Always consult with a healthcare professional before starting any new vitamins, supplements, diet, or exercise program before taking any medication, or if you have or suspect you might have a health problem. Any testimonials, questions, or case studies are based on individual results and do not constitute a guarantee that you will achieve the same results.